Welcome to the Content Champion podcast. We provide the training and tools to help you become a content marketing champion in your online business. Introducing your host, the content champion himself, Loz James.
Hi guys, welcome to the Content Champion podcast. Thanks as ever for listening. In this episode, I'm excited to be talking with experienced online marketer Matt Wolfe, host of my favourite podcast at multiplyauthority.com. Matt has so many strings to his bow, it's hard to know where to start when describing him. Entrepreneur, affiliate marketer, podcaster, blogger, product builder, content marketer and teacher. He seems to excel in all areas of running his online content-based business. And that brings us to the subject of today's show. I recently signed up to Matt's excellent Content Business Machine course, where he teaches us how to build our entire online brand and business using agile content marketing techniques. As a content marketer myself, this is the course I wish I'd made, as it's a model that's proven to work and anyone can follow. So let's dig down into the framework of how we can use Matt's system to earn a sustainable income selling information online. Let's dive in. Thanks for coming on, Matt.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Now look, everyone loves hearing our guests' backstories, so can you share yours with us, please?
Sure. Yeah, the backstory, that's that could probably turn into a quite long story, but I'll give you the real quick rundown. So back around 2005, I kind of learned how to do web development. I learned how to make real simple websites. I was working at the family business at the time. It was a shutter company. You know, we sold window coverings and shutters and that sort of thing. And in the evenings, I taught myself how to build websites by essentially reverse engineering websites that were already online. I would kind of go in various websites I liked and clicked view source and saw how they were made and taught myself how to make websites. So I never got any formal training in web development or marketing or anything like that. Just reverse engineered and taught myself in the evenings while doing this business. Set up the website for that company that I was working at. And what ended up happening was some of the clients of that company started going to my parents and saying, "Hey, who builds your website? We need a website for our company." And so my parents started referring me to them, and I started getting my first paying gigs, making money building some websites for people. So I did that for a couple of years on the side. It was all on the side while working at the shutter company. In 2007, I discovered blogging. I discovered WordPress and this easier way to make websites. So I really dove in, really started taking all these training courses, bought all these books, learned everything I could about this WordPress platform, and really dove in and discovered that this was the easy way to make websites. This was a lot easier than coding HTML by hand. So really dove into WordPress, started setting up my own blogs. I set up a personal finance blog, a health blog, and a gardening blog, of all things. All around 2007, all of those blogs came into fruition, and I started selling ad space on those blogs. At first, it was selling, AdSense, Google's sort of ad platform. I sold those on the blog, made a little bit of money off that. Then the blog started to get a little more popular. I started to get more traffic to it. So then I started to actually sell ad space outside of Google's platform. People actually came to me, said they wanted to advertise. I would say for $100 a month, I'll put your banner on my website, kind of thing. So I did that for a couple of years. So at this point, 2007, 2008, 2009, I was building websites for clients on a freelance basis. I was really, really hardcore studying WordPress, and I was making these blogs that were selling some advertising, earning some advertising income for me. 2009 rolled around. The economy just really, really took a turn for the worse. The housing market really tanked, and people stopped buying houses as much. And when people stopped buying houses, people stopped buying these window coverings, these shutters as much, and the company really started to struggle. My parents went and sold that company. The new owner came in. The new owner wanted to keep me on board because I was one of the higher ups at the company. And I just didn't get along with the new owner. And I said, look, I know how to make this website stuff. I know how to do this blogging stuff. I know how to make money advertising online. I'm going to go figure things out on my own. So I quit my job and dove into this stuff full time. Now, at the time, I was only making about $200 or $300 a month real consistently. The freelance stuff was real inconsistent, just when I had some time or when somebody would come after me for it, or the AdSense and the advertising money was only making me $200 or $300. So I jumped ship, quit my job, making $200 to $300 a month. I had a mortgage, I had a wife, I had car payments, I had all that stuff. So I had to figure things out really, really, really quickly. So in 2009, a few months after quitting my job, I decided, the next logical step for me, since I know how to build websites, I understand WordPress, I understand all this stuff, I'm going to start creating training courses to teach these concepts. So that was kind of my next evolution. I moved from creating a lot of these websites and doing the freelance work to creating tutorials online about how I did all this stuff that I was doing. So I started teaching, here's how you can make an extra $200 or $300 a month selling advertising on a blog that you create. That course was called the WordPress Classroom. It launched in 2009. I ran that for, all the way up until about 2013. In 2013, that business merged with another company called Free Blog Factory. Free Blog Factory and the WordPress Classroom merged and became learntoblog.com. And that business, is now $1 million business. And I actually sold my share in Learn to Blog at the beginning of last year. So in February of 2015, I sold Learn to Blog to my business partner. He bought me out on my half of the company. And at that point, I was on my own. And when I was on my own, I decided I'm going to go back to my roots and really get back into blogging again. I discovered podcasting. I really loved getting on and having great conversations with people. So I decided to add podcasting back into the mix. And I started kind of creating new training courses on, a lot of these strategies and steps that I'd learned along the way. And for the most part, that's what brings us to today.
And that brings us to Multiply Authority, which is currently my favorite podcast. I'm sure it will be for a long time to come as well, because it's one of those things when you find it online, it instantly jumped out. The branding and everything, your experience really sort of shines through. And that's, ties in with what you just said about your backstory there. I guess all of that came together, didn't it? The confidence, the branding, the products that you were creating to sort of create this great platform that you've now got with Multiply Authority, because the podcasts are really sort of very engaging. And I thought that immediately the first time I came to your site.
Thank you so much for saying that about the podcast. Now, Multiply Authority and Authority Insider are really the sum of everything I'd done up till this point. From 2005 till 2015, mid 2015, when I started that brand, I decided I wanted to just kind of have this place to unload and talk about all of the stuff that I've learned over the years, because the WordPress Classroom and Learn to Blog, those were very, very specific to blogging, and the first one was very specific to the WordPress platform. I wanted to create something that was all encompassing, where I can talk about everything that's gone on to the rise of building a brand and the rise of kind of becoming an authority figure in some of the marketplaces that I'm in. So that was kind of where that came from. And, along the way through 2000, all the way through 2015, I've made a lot of connections. I've gone to a lot of seminars. I've been interviewed a lot. I've interviewed a lot of people. I've written guest blog posts for a lot of blogs. And so the podcast came about because I wanted to essentially share that network. I've grown this network, and it felt a little unfair to hoard all these good people to myself and ask all these good questions from these people and not share that stuff with the world. So that was kind of how that stuff all came about.
Well, it's fantastic. I recommend everyone goes and has a listen to that. Talking about product creation, your flagship course now, Content Business Machine. I've signed up to it. It's really great stuff. And for the purposes of this call, can you tell us what's behind that? What is a content business machine? Why do we need one? And then we can dig down into some of the stages of building one.
So a content business machine, when I came up with that name and that term, what it essentially meant was an entire business built around content. You're attracting people to you using content. You're selling them your products using content. And the product that you're actually selling them is also content. Now, I've also sort of molded the course so if you don't sell content, it's also very relevant to whatever else you sell. But I've designed the course so that if you don't have something physical that you're selling, you don't have a service that you're selling, you can sell content as well. So you attract people to you through content, you sell with the use of content, and then what you are actually selling is content. So the content business machine is just this entire business model of just content. And one thing that I think people get overwhelmed with when I kind of give that sort of explanation is, wow, it sounds like I've got to create a ton of content. It sounds like, man, it seems like I'll have to constantly be doing nothing but creating content all the time. But a big part of what the content business machine is about is, quick ways to create content, leveraging other people to create content, leveraging other people's content that already exists, and different things like that.
Okay, so how do we lay the foundation for this? Where do we start with it all?
The very beginning, the very first step that you need to take is you need to pick a real good niche. You need to know what niche you want to be in. Now, I know this doesn't apply to everybody. A lot of people already kind of have an established niche. They already know what they want to be doing or what they want to be talking about. But the core is really dialing in what that niche is and who you're speaking to, and why they need your product. And this is something that I think so many people get wrong. They might say, look, I'm in the health niche, or I'm in the business opportunity niche, or I'm in the entrepreneur niche, or the podcast niche, or the dating niche. And in my mind, those aren't niches. Those are broad categories. A niche is much deeper. It's something smaller, something that you can pick out of one of those broader categories. One of the examples I give throughout the course is if you're in the dating niche, you're in the dating category, look at who's in a sub niche of the dating niche. You've got sites like JDate and rtime.com. JDate is basically a dating site for Jewish people. You've got rtime.com, which is a dating site for, I think it's people over 55. Those are sub niches of, the broad dating niche. Now, whatever niche you think you're in, try to figure out a very sort of small, narrow sub niche to get into, because one of the things that I talk about a lot and I teach a lot is using things like Facebook ads and YouTube and things like that to drive traffic. And those things become infinitely more easy if you are essentially the only person in your niche, if you are the only player in your niche, because your niche is so niched down, if that makes sense.
Totally. And I guess you can't have that connection. A big part of the course is about email marketing and nurturing that connection. You can't have that connection without niching down through email as well.
Absolutely. And I mean, just kind of a very broad example of that is if you are in the dating niche, you're teaching people how to get more dates, right? If you're in that niche, how are you going to email a list and talk to both men and women? They have completely different mindsets, completely different approaches to dating, completely different sets of problems. If you're just in the dating niche, you're going to have a real hard time with things like email marketing and Facebook ads and really speaking to the people that you want to speak to.
I'm going to mention the fear factor here, though. Two things you said. One earlier on was you just seamlessly almost had the confidence to go in and build that WordPress course. And also, niching down seems often contrary to what a lot of people are doing in terms of being generalists. So it's kind of getting over that fear and niching down and getting started is at the core of this as well, isn't it?
Yeah. Now, when it comes to creating the course, there was definitely a ton of fear there in creating the course the first time around, and it was actually truly purchasing and paying to have a mentor. That was something that was a big leap. And I know this is kind of a sort of side tangent from where you were going. But one of the things when I first started my course was I was reading a lot of ebooks. I was purchasing a lot of courses myself. I was hanging out in a lot of forums and really, really studying what I should do to get my business off the ground. And I had all sorts of knowledge. I had as much knowledge as I can possibly need to get an online business going, to create a training course, to sell a training course. I knew everything I needed to know, but for some reason, I just wasn't taking the leap and doing it. It wasn't until I decided, okay, I need somebody to basically slap me around a little bit and say, why aren't you doing this stuff that you're learning? And once I paid to actually have a mentor, somebody that I can get on the phone with and talk to, and that would hold me accountable and would say, hey, this is what you need to be doing. You know you need to be doing this. Why haven't you done it yet? That was one of the biggest turning points in my business, was just having that accountability, that money on the line, that skin in the game of having that coach, that mentor. So that was one of the big things that got me past that fear, was somebody constantly in my ear forcing me to get out of my comfort zone. And then the second part, as far as sub-niching, I do think a lot of people try to go broad. They try to go really, really broad with what their niche is. And I think those people really, really struggle. I think the people that really hone in and get real specific with what they're teaching and who they're talking to are the people that find it actually fairly easy to have success, because they repel the people that they don't want and they attract the people that they do want. You know, when you use things like Facebook ads, if you have a very specific niche, if it's very, very specific, I'm targeting, just to kind of stick with the dating niche, if I'm targeting women between the ages of 25 and 35 who live in Chicago, who don't drink, if you have all this criteria and you're super, super niche down, well, the languaging on your sales page, the language on your blog post, the language in your emails, and then the actual targets that you pick to target on Facebook, they become effortless. You're talking to the exact person that needs to see what you're offering right now.
And by extension, that then informs the type of product you go on to create. That said, some types of information products work better than others, don't they? Yeah,
I mean, the thing about picking your niche as well is you've got to pick a niche that there's a need for, that there's a pain, there's a pain point. When it comes to that product, if there's no pain point, then people aren't going to buy it as well. The big three sort of categories that you can get in are the health, the make money, finance, and the dating niches. So those are the three sort of broad categories that there's a lot of pain points. People are struggling to make money. People are struggling with their finances. People are struggling to find dates. People are struggling to shed those extra pounds or to put on that muscle. Those areas have pain points. If you go into a really, really, really random niche where there's not a lot of pain in that niche, you're probably going to struggle to sell products as well. It's not to say that you can't do it. There are some of these sub niches that have fanatics that absolutely will spend money on this niche because they absolutely love it, but you're probably going to have an easier time, an easier path to creating income if you find pain points of people in some of these niches.
And income paths, talking about those, we look at membership sites, a one-off course, or a combination of different types of courses and material.
For me, I'm all about having that variety. I like creating the one-off courses. I like having memberships and continuity programs that provide recurring billing. I like having the sort of high ticket opportunities where people can work with me one-on-one through coaching type programs. I like having entry points that anybody could sort of find me through.
And we're touching upon different parts of your content business machine process. And I know we can't get into give all your secrets away because we want people to go and sign up to the course, which I recommend. But looking at selling these courses, how do you recommend we approach this to get the best results? Just some simple tips to start us off.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's the interesting thing. I think people really, really overthink the selling aspect of this type of business as well, because I really, truly believe that you can just sell with your content. You can sell through examples. You can give really, really, really good content. And by the end of that content, people are going to start saying, well, how do I get more of this type of content? So even on podcast episodes like this one and in conversations like this one, you mentioned not wanting to give away too many of the secrets. And really, when it comes to this type of content, I tend to take more of an open book approach. I'll give as much content to people as they want, and they'll still come back to me to learn even more and go even deeper. But the way I recommend selling is through teaching. So create blog posts. This is probably the simplest way to do it. Create a blog post that talks about all the benefits of your product and how this product will help you, and do it in an educational format where people have takeaways from it. And then by the end of that blog post, give them a link to where they can go learn more and purchase your product. The other way that I really, really like to sell products, and this is probably my current favorite way, is through live training webinars where, my courses are video training courses. I teach these various concepts and these various tactics through video. Well, a live webinar is just me doing that on through a live training, and at the end saying, do you essentially want to get more of this live training? Here's how you do it. So those are really the two kind of core ways that I like to sell. I create really, really good content that people enjoy, and by the end of that content, I give them links to go and get more of that content from me. Now, I do have to kind of leave them thirsty a little bit, and there are some copywriting tactics and some persuasion sort of elements to that by the end of that content leave them wanting more. But for the most part, that's the general idea. You give them this good content, you give them some aha moments, you give them some actionable steps, and then you kind of leave them wanting more at the end so that they come and buy your courses.
It seems counterintuitive as well, and people might be worried about giving too much away, as you say. But it really works, doesn't it? You can literally be an open book and people will come and buy the similar sort of information from you, where you take it that bit further and go on to some more advanced strategies in the whole process.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I've never really shied away from teaching anything behind a paywall versus outside of a paywall. You can find a lot of content for me for free. I have paid content out there. If you purchase the paid content, you're going to get a little bit more access to me, and you're going to get a little bit. There's going to be some additional strategies and a little more in depth on some of the concepts. But the broader concepts are widely available. The broader concepts you can find on YouTube, you can find on other people's blog posts, you can find in forums. They're out there. Might as well me be one of those voices as well.
Mm-hmm. How can we create content quickly? You mentioned this earlier on. It's key to the course, to the Content Business Machine course. What are some of the methods you use to get high quality content out there rapidly?
Yeah, so there's so many different ways, but one of my favorite methods, and this is kind of one of the sort of little secrets that every time I tell somebody about this strategy, they get real excited, because this is sort of a real actionable takeaway that you can go do right now. Is if you go to a site like jobs.problogger.net, that's a job posting board where you can go there, write up a little job listing and say, hey, I'm looking for writers for my blog. I'm looking for content creators. You go and you create a job listing on that site. It costs $50 to create a job posting, but when you create that job posting, you'll probably get somewhere between 50 and 70 responses from really high quality English as a first language, great proven writers. And they'll send you examples of their work, and you'll find that probably over 50% of the people that contact you are real high quality writers. So what I like to do is I'll pay the $50. I'll get a bunch of writers. I will save all the names and emails of these writers inside of a little Google spreadsheet so that I don't have to go pay for an ad again later. I've just got my spreadsheet of who I can reach out to in the future. And then I reach out to each one of these people and I say, look, I've got this blog. I need an article on X topic, but I don't need a super in-depth polished article. I just want you to write me a rough draft. Just write me a rough draft, do the research, and give me a little more than an outline, and go and have people do that for you. Because the hardest part about creating a blog post or creating an ebook or creating most of these types of written content is doing the research, going out and doing all the legwork to find this information, and B, staring at that blank screen and writing that first sentence, right? Just getting past that initial writer's block to just start typing the words. And if you hire somebody to write you this rough draft, then you get past those two biggest barriers. You get past the barrier of I have to go out and hunt down all this research, and you get past that barrier of I'm staring at a blank screen. So now all you do is you take this rough draft, you bring it into WordPress, all the hard work is done, and you just kind of tweak it a little. You reword it a little bit so it sounds more like your voice. You maybe go find some images, add some images to it. What I tend to find is I'll get them to write me about 1,000-word article. I can get them for somewhere between $30 for 1,000 words. And when I go back and tweak it, I usually find that I have so much more to add to it that it turns into, a 2,000-word article instead of a 1,000-word article. You don't have to do that. I just find that when I start skimming through the topic and rewording things and adding in my own stories and personal anecdotes, that's what it becomes just effortless, because the hard part is already past. You paid somebody to do the hard part for you. So that's one way that I like to create content quickly, specifically for blog posts, and I've done it for ebooks that I give away for opt-ins or lead magnets or whatever you want to call it, and also ebooks that I've sold in the past. Let's see, some other ways is, content doesn't necessarily have to be written word. My favorite form of content, personally, the content that I consume the most comes in the form of audio. I listen, I go for runs or walks, or I go to the gym, or I'm in my car a lot. I like to consume content while I'm doing something else. So audio content is great for me. I love consuming audio content. It's my favorite way to consume content. So that is one way to quickly create content, is pull out a microphone and just start talking. If you've got an idea or a concept you want to teach, just start talking it out. Grab a free tool like Audacity. I think it's called Audacity. And it's a free recording tool for your computer. Open it up, hit record, and just start talking out your content. And that can become a podcast. That can be audio content that you put on your blog to attract people to you. Now, if you want to take that content to a next step, a next level, go to a site like rev.com, that's rev.com, and give them that audio file that you just created. And within 24 hours, they'll send you back a full transcript of that audio file. Now you have text content that you can use for a written blog post or an ebook, and you can treat it just like a rough draft. It's gonna read like a transcript. It's not gonna read like a blog post. So you may want to go back through it and do a little bit of polishing on it to make it read more like a blog post. But that's another really quick way to create content.
These are great tactics. I'm going to steal all of them, by the way, because they're just fantastic. Okay, so we've got everything set up. We've done all our niche research, got all our great content, fantastic products. Most people aren't going to buy straight away. So how do we nurture them into making that sale?
So yeah, that's a great question. And the way I do it is on my blog, I try to get them to get onto my email list. I try to opt them in on my blog somewhere. And I do that through multiple tactics. I use a plugin called Thrive Leads. Thrive Leads is the plugin I use to collect email addresses from my website. And what that'll do is on your blog post, it'll add a little slide up in the bottom right-hand corner that asks for your email address. And as somebody tries to exit your website, you can make it have a little exit pop-up that before they exit your site says, hey, wait a minute, do you want this free report? So I use some tools like that to grab emails, and usually I give away some sort of ebook or a quick video that I made or something like that to grab their email. The other way I use to really grab people's emails is what's called the content upgrade. This has been a real sort of buzzword hot topic lately. And that's where each piece of content that you put on the blog, each blog post, each podcast, each new piece of content that goes on the site, you make a unique upgrade to it. And by upgrade, it could be, a one-page cheat sheet or a video explanation of something you just talked about on that blog post. Or, one thing that I like to do is for my podcast episodes, a lot of times I will, at the end of the podcast, after we're done recording the actual main core podcast episode, I'll keep people on the line for a little bit and have another little 10-minute chat with them. And that extra little chat, I might ask people to opt in for that bonus chat. So I'll do things like that with some of my podcast episodes. So that's called the content upgrade, where you're just giving them something additional that's very, very relevant to that piece of content they just read. Now, that's how you get the email address. Once you've got the email address, I'm a big proponent of mailing often. And this is sort of a controversial topic in the internet marketing business world, is how often should you mail your list once you've started building it. And I'm a big proponent of every day, if you have something to write about every day. I tend to slack off a little bit and only mail about 5 days a week. But if I had something to say 7 days a week, I would mail my list 7 days a week. I like to stay in front of them as frequently as possible. I like my name to be on their radar all the time. So every time I create a new podcast, every time there's a new blog post, every time I have got a new product that's for sale, every time I start using a new tool that I can offer as an affiliate, I mail my list. So I mail my list very, very often. It keeps me top of mind. I like to mail my list with content right in the email. So if I have some sort of words of wisdom or, something that's on my mind, I might just have a little rant in an email and send it out. And doing things like that, I think people will be surprised with how engaged their email list will actually get. I know a lot of people worry about, should I mail too often? If I mail, if I only want to mail my list once a week, because they're going to get frustrated if I mail too often, and what people like that find out is that over time, their email engagement just drops and drops and drops and drops until the next thing they know, they're mailing their list and nobody's paying attention. They can't get any response. Where if you're mailing every day, the people that really don't want to hear from you, they get off your list pretty dang quick. And the people that do want to hear from you, they keep opening your emails to read from you. So it kind of starts to repel the wrong people and attract the right people. And that's how I really stay engaged. And that's how I continually drive traffic to podcast episodes. I continually drive traffic to new blog posts, and I continually drive traffic to sales pages and webinars and the various assets out there that I have for sale.
You're listening to the Content Champion podcast, showcasing the training and tools you need to become a content marketing champion in your online business.
Okay, so we're talking about the framework for your Content Business Machine course. You've mentioned traffic there, email obviously at the top of that list. What are some other traffic getting strategies we can use?
Yeah, so for me, my big few, so my handful of traffic strategies that really work well for me. Number one is email. It always will be email for me. In the beginning, it may not be email for your listeners until they've ramped up that list a little bit. But once they've ramped up that list, your email will pretty quickly probably become your number one traffic source. Number two for me is Facebook. I post everything on Facebook. I boost my Facebook posts, so I'll spend $5, $10 a day to make sure that my content is constantly being seen by people. Now, this topic is also sort of controversial because I'm sending people to content from Facebook, and I'm actually paying to send people to content, and it's not always immediate the ROI you're going to see from it. Sometimes it's hard to see, like, okay, I'm spending $10 a day and I'm sending people to content. Is this money that I'm spending getting me a return on investment because I'm sending people to content as opposed to sending people to things for sale? But the way I look at it is it's all brand, it's all frequency, it's all staying top of mind with people. People are seeing my face, they're seeing my name, they're seeing my blog post, they're seeing my content over and over and over again. If you've been to my website or you're on my mailing list, and you're also on Facebook, you probably can't escape me. You're probably seeing me everywhere.
That's what did it. That's what did it, I think.
And that's what did it. I use a lot of retargeting. So if somebody comes to one of my blog posts, now all of a sudden, every time a new blog post comes out by me, I'm going to retarget you, and you're going to see all of my future blog posts on Facebook.
It's amazing.
So I do a lot of that Facebook retargeting. So Facebook is another one. Email is one of them. Twitter is, it's actually sort of declining, but I do see some traffic through Twitter by giving shout outs to people in my blog posts We can talk about that a little bit more later if you want. But Twitter is, the funny thing is, LinkedIn has actually started to take over a little bit more for me. I've been experimenting a lot with LinkedIn, and I'm actually starting to see some decent traffic posting my stuff on LinkedIn and repurposing content on LinkedIn. So I'll take older blog posts and put them on LinkedIn Pulse, which is LinkedIn's blogging platform. And I'll see people, clicking on my links from those blog posts and driving back to my website. So yeah, email, Facebook organic, Facebook paid, Twitter a little bit, LinkedIn a little bit. And then because I do an interview show for my podcast, just like the show you do, I get a lot of my guests driving traffic for me as well. I have guests on the show, and once their show goes live, they're usually more than willing to post a link back to the episode they were just on Facebook and Twitter and their various social media accounts. And very occasionally, if I'm lucky, some of these people will mail their list and say, hey, I was just on this podcast. So I get some of my guests to drive traffic for me as well.
And I have to mention, if I'm allowed, there's a great retargeting case study within your Content Business Machine course. And I used it, and I actually created a huge retargeting audience in Facebook for like 4p for each one for, I don't know, 150, 200 pounds. So
it's amazing too. And that case study is actually using, if it's the one I think you're talking about, it's actually using an affiliate product. So it's building a retargeting list without even selling your own product.
It's great stuff. Great stuff. Okay, so you've touched on it again there. The traffic generation kind of ties in seamlessly with the branding, because when I said earlier on that's what did it, what I meant is that's what sort of got you everywhere in my mind. When I first came to your blog, I felt like, oh, this is stuff. It didn't seem familiar, but it seemed instantly authoritative and trustworthy. And I'd obviously seen you before, and subconsciously, when I was listening to your podcast and I was looking at your site, I thought, hey, this rings true. This looks good. It's kosher. It's above board and everything else. I trust what this guy's saying. And looking back, I think you probably retargeted me on Facebook.
That's probably true. If you've been to my website at all, I'm retargeting people on Facebook. But, one of my big core strategies is really, it's really the concept of frequency. I want people to see my name and see my face over and over and over again. So you're seeing me hit your inbox every day almost, if you're on my list. If you've been to my website, you're seeing me on Facebook every day pretty much. If you follow me on Twitter, you're seeing my posts pretty frequently on Twitter. If you follow me on LinkedIn, you're seeing it there. I've got a YouTube channel where every time I do a podcast, I create a video version of the podcast as well. And so if you're following me on YouTube, you're seeing my face, you're seeing my videos multiple times per week. It's all about that frequency and just staying top of mind all the time for people, that when I do create a product, when I do have offers for sale, it just becomes that much easier, because I've already built that trust. People already feel like they know me. People feel like I'm that authority because they've been seeing me everywhere.
And just before we start to wrap the call up, something that comes out of that, again, people listening might be thinking, okay, this is a lot to get out there, to get your face on everything, as you say. Is it a confidence issue? Does that come with experience, or is there no way around this anymore? It's not like the Wild West days of SEO and link building in the past, where you could spam links and sell loads of stuff online. If you want to make it online now, you do have to brand yourself and put yourself front and center, don't you?
To be honest, I think it depends on what niche you're going into. I don't think it's necessarily important for every single possible niche or sort of business that you're going down. I think if you want to be an authority, if you're going to be a content person, this podcast is all about content and content marketing and that sort of thing. If you're putting out content, part of the reason you're putting out content is you want to be seen as that thought leader. You want to be seen as that authority. This is just taking those concepts to an extreme. And, I know there's a lot of people that are a little afraid to put themselves out there and to put their face out there and have their name seen everywhere and that sort of thing. But I think you really need to ask yourself in those situations, why am I doing content marketing? What is the point of my content marketing? What is the end goal of my content marketing, right? For me, my end goal with my content marketing is to, put out really good content. It's to be seen everywhere. It's to be looked at as a thought leader. And then when I put products out there for sale, people just instantly trust me. They've been tuning into my podcast. They've been tuning into my emails. They've been tuning into my blog posts. So I've already built that trust factor. I've already built that brand, that authority, that when I do go to sell it, they're like, oh, that's Matt. He's the guy to watch when it comes to content marketing because I've seen him everywhere. Everybody's talking about him. So that's kind of the goal. So if you have that sort of similar end goal in mind, I think you just need to get out of your comfort zone and do what you need to do to achieve that end goal. Now, if you're in e-commerce, let's say you're selling some sort of widget. You don't necessarily need to put your face out there. You can get by with putting up a sales page with your product, demonstrating the product, driving traffic through SEO, driving traffic through Facebook ads, and being completely behind the scenes. I definitely think you can make millions of dollars and be very, very successful doing that in the e-commerce world if that's your end goal. I think if your end goal is to be someone who sells your content, who teaches, who's a trainer, who's an educator, I think it's very important to build that brand, build that authority, build that trust element.
Well, I've been a journalist. I started as a journalist in 98. I've been writing copy and content, doing content marketing for, I guess, 17 years. And you're definitely doing it better than most people that I've seen online. So something is going right. And I think,
that.
This content business machine course that you've set up really encapsulates everything we've been talking about, obviously, and is a great sort of way to move forward. So just before we go on to the PS question, it's been a fascinating conversation. Can you remind us where we can find that and also where you can access your superb podcast and all your other products as well, please?
Yeah, if you go to multiplyauthority.com, that's pretty much the hub. You can find anything from there. If you go up to the little products page at the top, you can find a link to the content business machine. Multiplyauthority.com is where all the latest blog posts go. So that's pretty much the hub for everything. If you go there, you'll find pretty much all of it. You can follow me on Facebook, facebook.com/the_Matt_Wolfe. Somebody else has plain old Matt Wolfe, so I'm the Matt Wolfe. But yeah, those are kind of the two places I hang out.
Wait for it, listeners. Here comes the PS question.
Okay, this is what I call the PS question. Could you please share one more advanced content marketing tactic we can use right after the show?
Yeah, sure. So one thing I mentioned earlier on in the show was Twitter. And I mentioned influencer marketing. And one thing that I really like to do, and one reason that I still drive traffic from Twitter when, most people say Twitter is dead and Twitter is not a good traffic source, is because I do this sort of influencer outreach with my blog posts. So what I do when I write blog posts, when I write content for my website, is I always make sure that I include, 1 to 2 names of influencers or businesses. And I link back to their websites, or I link to their Twitter file, or their profile, or some sort of resource by that person or that company. And I do that with every single blog post. And then I get on Twitter, I share that blog post, and then I tweet at the people that I mentioned and say, hey, I just mentioned you in this blog post. You'll probably want to check it out. 9 times out of 10, the people that are mentioned in the blog post are going to go and retweet it to their following. And I usually try to do this with people that have very large Twitter followings, people that are considered influencers in their niche. So, I might write a blog post about, blogging specifically. And in it, I might mention, Pat Flynn, Yaro Starik, Darren Rouse, some of these, really big name bloggers that are known for teaching blogging. I might mention some of those people in a blog post about blogging. Once that blog post is live, I'll get on Twitter, I'll share it just normally, but then I'll also send an @reply message to Pat Flynn. I'll send an @reply message to Darren Rouse. I'll send an @reply message to Yaro Starik. All of these guys, I'll send them messages and say, hey, I just mentioned you on this big blog post about how to start a blog. You might enjoy this. Now, what's going to happen is, those 3 people are all going to go check out the blog post. They might comment on it. That will lend to the credibility a little bit if, those people are commenting on the blog post. But also, usually people are pretty flattered when other people are talking about them in their content, and they're likely to share it. It doesn't take much effort on their part to hit the tweet button and share it real quick on Twitter. And so I'll get, pretty big people with big Twitter followings sharing my blog post for that one, for that one reason, because I tweeted at them and mentioned that they were in it. Another real quick one is I mentioned Facebook ads earlier. Every time I create a piece of content, I'll do a $10 boost post to the content. And I know a lot of people say, with Facebook ads, don't do the boost post. It's kind of a waste to get into the ads manager. And, there's a whole sort of philosophy behind Facebook advertising. And I do advertising in that way. But whenever I create a new piece of content, I do a boost post. And I don't do it in a traditional sense. When you go to boost post, you can actually retarget with your boost post now. So I have a retargeting pixel on my blog. So anybody that visits my blog at all gets pixeled in, and I can actually go to boost post now and say I want to target everybody that has visited my blog. So now every time a new piece of content comes out from me, I click boost post. I spend $10 for 3 days, so it's a little over $3 a day on ad spend, and I boost the post and I target people who have previously visited my blog. So it keeps people that have been to my blog once coming back over and over and over and over again. And what you'll see people sharing that post on Facebook. You'll see them liking it. You'll see them commenting on it. Then what happens is their friends start to click on the blog post. They get retargeted into my blog and they start seeing my boost posts in the future. And it just kind of snowballs and snowballs and snowballs. Next thing I know, I'm doing $10 boost posts, but I'm getting 100 clicks back to my blog every time I do it.
Oh, that's genius. You see, that's how you got me. So I'm going to steal those two tactics as well. And I'm also going to say thank you very much for your time today. It's been a great call, fascinating. I advise everyone to go and check out the Content Business Machine. And yeah, I just want to say good luck with everything in future, Matt. Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. It was a fun call.
You've been listening to the Content Champion podcast, available at contentchampion.com and on iTunes. Until next time, thanks for listening.